Yes, this uses the name, but I'm not ripping off the format of cinemasins because what I'm saying isn't going to be a bunch of bullshit. I'm just going to be putting out flaws, stupid things, dumb lines, and whether or not they majorly impact the show volume is completely subjective. I will avoid enforcing my opinion on you. I want to get on with this because the script is long as it is. Hi guys, Nemesis Butterike, in case you weren't aware or you didn't look at the thing or you're not subscribed to me. I'm just going to look through volume 6, okay? So in this opening shot, we can't see anybody but Yang and Blake, meaning that they are in front of RWBY and Weiss. But when this mandrake flies over, we never see it past Blake or Yang, and it looks like Yang is shooting at it, but then it gets sliced in half by RWBY. However, RWBY wasn't seen in front of those two, and she couldn't have sped ahead because literally all the next shot show Blake and Yang is in front of her, without seeing them pass her in this shot.
Good to see you're not rusty.
Yes, thank you Yang for pointing out the fact that Blake has been on a boat and not training for 6 months, then gone on 2 encounters, and has not lost any of her skills at all. I've mentioned this a lot in the past, and I think I'm the only person who realizes that a martial artist not training or practicing or sparring for 6 months is detrimental to their skill. Nothing seems to have any kinetic force in this fight. Not only do Ren's guns have no recoil, but these fireballs that John blocked, they have so little impact. I'm pretty sure blocking them isn't necessary. I know why he does it, because they're still fireballs, but they're probably not necessary. But then Nora straight up fires a grenade launcher right next to John and seems to have the most minimal recoil and doesn't affect him at all. Now, I can forgive the recoil because she's really strong, but John's not affected and this all happens in the same scene. Except then Ren spins Nora around and she fires a bunch of shots with no recoil. So I get that he's screaming, but these guys are on top of a moving train surrounded by gunfire, both from them and the turrets, and are fighting, yet they still hear Oscar. This could have been a good moment for Blake's fairness trait of super hearing to come into play, but I guess individuals having different roles in a fight is pretty unimportant. The calls from the stairs looks off. So technically this position is basically impossible to do unless you're alive and forcing it, because if he's dead, he should be slumping into that space a bit more. Also, his feet should be more angled and not straight up. Seriously, you try to get in that position and relax your body. I did, and I didn't stay looking like it. It also seems unlikely that this sword landed in that position because someone dropped it upon being de-alived. It looks more like Adam gently placed it there because it looked cool.
The Belladonna girl. Blake.
In case we didn't know, also who are you talking to? Also who thinks of a person, then says out loud what someone else called them before you killed that person, and then say their actual name. They're still trains as Shion despite the state of that place. It says a lot about how biased the show wants our opinion of the faunus to be when they lie about Lionheart's involvement in the Battle of Haven. It's like only Beast Wars got it right with Dinopod's death. Quote, "Tell my tale to those who ask. Tell it truly, the ill deeds along with the good, and let me be judged accordingly. The rest is silence." Unquote. And that's what I'd prefer to see. Once again, this is a subjective thing, but when you have to lie to get your political opinion within the show across, it kinda makes you look like an asshole, Crow. Even if the audience is supposed to agree with what you did, and your opinion, you're still covering for the act of someone who betrayed the trust he was given. It's just, if this was a bad guy lying that Gira did things wrong, we'd be made to feel like that the bad guy did a bad thing, when really, lying that a good guy did something bad is no better than lying that a bad guy did nothing bad. Yeah, I'm not going to argue whether Lionheart can be quote-unquote considered a bad guy, but he did betray his school, lead a bunch of huntsmen to their death, and allowed access to a magic world-changing relic to people wanting to use it for harm, and assisted the bad guys. So even if it was an act of cowardice, which it wasn't, as it takes some pretty big balls to do that, it doesn't forgive him. There's this idea I hear where we should forgive people who did ill in the past if they redeem themselves in the present. But it goes both ways. If you did good in the past, it doesn't forgive you if the most recent thing you did was massacre a bunch of people. RWBY instantly manages to dispel all of Weiss's surprisingly minimal concerns about going back to the place she spent a whole volume attempting to escape. So is Crow using his scroll here or a digital card that happens to look like a scroll? Unless his default background is his huntsman card, or he has a lock screen of it, or he already had it open on his scroll just to walk up and show it like this, it seems unlikely he'd just pull it out and it'd be like that. These guys just sort of mock Dee and Dudley, even Oscar does. But these two, yeah, they're kind of assholes, but they are also graduates, meaning they have real combat skill and should be respected given their job is literally protecting you. I mean, you guys are assholes too. You're literally traveling with Crow, the king of assholes.
I still don't feel like I deserve the freedom you and your family granted me.
You don't, Julia. You were part of a terrorist organization who attempted to murder the Belladonna household. You really don't deserve it. Yes, us as an audience have told you should because you felt bad about it, and the characters forgive you, but you really don't. Like, if Ted Bundy was like, yeah, I did some awful things, but I felt really bad about it, and it was all done because my senpai fell in love with some edgelord and forgot me, also some random racism we couldn't be bothered expanding upon because we try to be as average as Legend of Korra Season 1 happened, so yeah, forgive me. then by this show's logic, we should forgive him. Knowing the reason behind a bad act does not forgive the bad act.
Saving Haven had a huge impact on how Faunus are seen in Mistral.
Yes, saving
Haven
had a big impact because you lied about what actually happened for your own political gain. Then again, lying is a big part of politics, so I'm not really surprised.
The White Fang may have been a failure, but with your father starting up a new movement, I've got more faith than ever before.
Yes, the White Fang failed, but I have more faith in this new movement started by the guy who started the White Fang.
Oh. I didn't know Ilya was gonna be here.
This implies that Neptune knows who Ilya is, and there's no sort of, oh wow, that Ilya girl you talked about is surprisingly hot reaction, so he probably has seen and met her before. So why nobody would tell this incredibly flirtatious man who wants to bone zone every book under the sun that isn't Blake, that Ilya is a lesbian leads me to believe that Sun just really wants to get a laugh at his expense. Ilya and Neptune vanished. Given Crow's bad luck semblance, wouldn't it make more sense to have Crow fly to Argus separate from him in his bird form? Considering throughout Volume 4 he had to maintain a safe distance to ensure the group was safe, it just feels like his laziness and lack of intelligence has led him to forget about ways to avoid his bad luck semblance. I mean, most of the characters are of age, so they should be able to board a train without him. And yet, Crow probably isn't as fast as the train, but I think efficiency should take place over speed running this. Just because Crow might get there a few hours or even days after they do, shouldn't be too big a problem given his luck attracting these Grimm leads him to having an even bigger delay, and yet nothing came of that delay. Now yes, I'm aware that the Grimm are also attracted to that artifact, but nobody actually knows that, as seeing as Ozpin never brought it up, it's clear that Crow never considered this. Remember when Team Coffee got a moment to show off their abilities and it was really cool despite how blatantly unimportant the characters are, and how everyone complained and made the Grimm no longer a threat even though they hadn't been a threat since episode 5 of the first volume, thus making their complaints invalid? Yeah, well now we don't get that. And characters who, for all intents and purposes, should be stronger than these guys, or at least more skilled, or at least as skilled, fail completely. In fact, he just sort of vanishes after this. Now, Oscar opening this window is a little silly, but I can understand that he wants a better look. However, I can't forgive that he just leaves it open because we never see him close it. You fucking idiot. John asks what's going on, and instead of Oscar saying, "Grimm attack, big flying fuckers!" he just sort of stands there hoping the screams that should tell John enough to not need to ask jog the grey matter in the idiot's head. Given you had a cutaway, an establishing shot for this action scene would help, because we have no idea where anyone is.
Stop! Have to lure the Grimm to the back!
So the implications of this line are both that the train cars behind them don't have passengers, which is weird as the car behind them is where John and Co came out of, and it was full of people when they were there, but admittedly they could have gone to a different car, and that the Grimm going towards the turrets will then go after the passengers inside. But all we see are the Grimm attacking turrets and no shots of them actually attacking the train itself. In fact, the turrets are great as distractions and additional firepower, so Dudley's got the right idea here.
What does it matter? They're dead!
Once again, Dudley is correct. The turrets allow additional firepower and distractions. In fact, if there's nothing to distract them from the train itself, it makes it more likely that they'll notice the train itself. Also, the train is armored up, so unless this armor is completely fucking useless, which, given the mandrakes blatantly blow up turrets while Oscar's next to them and he isn't even affected, and that they can't break John's shield, it would lead me to believe that they couldn't damage the armor of this train. What's your problem? They attack the train, can't damage it, and you pick them off safely. Dudley's arm is fine and barely has a wound. Okay. But then Crow assaults the guy, slamming him against the wall, and he has no repercussions even though Dudley is a certified huntsman, who did nothing objectively wrong, just something you disagree with. Also, Dudley reasonably has authority over Crow in this situation. His judgment should take priority as he is responsible for the safety of the train. He is the head of security for it. Here begins the counter scenes that RWBY fixes a problem without any problems whatsoever, with a speech.
Grimm are also attracted to this.
Why wouldn't you tell us that?
It doesn't matter right now.
Shut the fuck up, RWBY, it does matter. This is the time where it is most paramount, both to conceive of a plan and also to talk it out, because trust is important, and because they don't trust Ozpin, their teamwork will be lesser.
We just can't come with you. If we cut the back cars with us and the relic on them, we can deal with the Grimm.
Wait, what? RWBY, what? If this is a reasonable plan, you'd want to lure them. Literally just don't cut the train, have the artifact at the back, shut off the turrets, and let Ren do his thing. If that works, then the Grimm will not only be unable to see you, judged by how they're carefully lost sight of these idiots in Volume 4, but they'll also only go towards the back, and you can pick them off one by one as they approach the artifact without any knowledge that you're there. It really took no time at all to think about this. And bring Nora with you. She isn't going to help Ren and John, and she can assist in the fighty fights. In fact, she does such a bad job of leading people to the front that she doesn't notice this old lady here who manages to go back to the back. And it's not crowded enough for them to reasonably not notice. Why does she hallucinate Adam? What about this guy you were able to destroy with utter ease in one hit would be traumatizing? You didn't have any signs of trauma till now, so it must be a recent development, but for what reason? And if he's actually there, then why and how did he magically show up then not show up when you're on a moving train? Okay, so there are no Grimm behind these guys, right? We don't see any in any shots. And the train cars, they're pretty far apart already. So why are these so close? Why didn't these guys stop them? Once again, thanks to the lack of an establishing shot, as everyone has moved since the last scene for whatever reason. So Crow couldn't damage any of this guy before, but now that his wings aren't there, his torso is suddenly easily cuttable. Why didn't any of you shoot the fireball? Or why didn't RWBY do the impulsive thing of using her speed semblance to intercept it? You know, like would be fitting of her character, quote unquote. Cinder's bottom half isn't animated at all, despite clearly not being frozen. Cinder goes to punch the camera despite it not even being remotely close to the ground nor the rocks she's trying to destroy. Meaning she probably just swung and looked like an idiot and then went back to hitting the ground when she realized the vibrations are what broke it. Then again, given how far away it looks, proportionally this hole should already be big enough to crawl through, because this line and these rocks make it look like this hole should be huge. However, then her opening it up further makes no sense unless she's actually super close to it. But the perspective fails to convey that, and the only thing that might is the lighting on her face in this shot. So this is just a very poorly made shot here. Also, her hair isn't wet. Even in the rain, it's not wet. Pretty shoddy when Devil May Cry 3 on the PlayStation 3 has better hair effects than you. This girl's hair isn't wet either, and yes, I'm going to ignore how weird the rain effects are. In fact, I'm going to tell you that I will ignore how weird the 2D effects look in this volume as a whole. And I'll also ignore that Cinder's flames is hot enough to be going in the rain, but not causing any steam of any kind. On a side, I know this video is primarily negative, but I really like how callously Cinder kills this lady. It does help make us see her more like, you know, a threat. Weiss has two lines all volume about her apprehension on going back to Atlas, and both of them are played for laughs. I'm not counting the house bit, as the apathy was affecting her. You know, why didn't Crow just fly to Atlas in his bird form, tell Ironwood that he has Ozpin and the Relic from Haven, and that they need to guard it, and then just get everyone in that way? You know, I gotta say, I found this pretty funny. Nora's great. Even if her character sucks, she's entertaining, so fuck it, she gets a pass. Shut up, Floof. I'm just kidding, Floof. Also, if I spent time mentioning every time I enjoyed Maria in this volume, we'd literally be here all day. Yang, not telling you something is not a lie or a half-truth. It is a secret. He didn't say, duh, it doesn't attract Grimm, or it answers questions and that's all it does. I love that Yang is shouting at Oscar, but then he's responding all quiet, despite, you know, the distance.
Leonardo deserved to be remembered for his lifetime of service, and not the unfortunate missteps he made in his final years.
Yet, if all the good you did was help a few homeless people and your lapse in judgment blew up several shelters for them, I think it doesn't really hold up. The quantity of what was done is irrelevant without context to the quality of what was done. Also, while Ozpin's kind of a dick, I feel like it should be mentioned that it'd be basically impossible for anybody in or out of the show to truly understand what goes on in his head, given his age and experience. How can anyone truly fathom how somebody so old would act? Of course, that doesn't negate common sense and saying things that would just get up the arse for you. You can question those choices, like blatantly telling Hazel his sister's death was her own fault when he was responsible for her, but keeping secrets and issues of trust are things that reasonably would be hard to gauge. Now, this isn't a criticism on any part of the show or the fans, it's just something I want to bring up that makes Ozpin's character a bit easier to understand, and also a bit more complex, and something that should be noted whenever someone decides to go in depth and study his shallow character. I think this is something that could have been easily expanded upon, but they didn't. So I guess they just didn't see the possibility in expanding upon the trust issues of someone who's thousands of years old. Yeah, so beyond looking surprised, nobody's really too shocked or going to question anything about what the hell's up with her. Now, I'm not saying it's unreasonable to assume that they would think twice about asking it, given they only have 2 questions, but the fact that after this nobody raises an seems a bit strange. Why does it approximately say 1 month ago when it's been 2 weeks as established earlier? A month is usually around 3 or 4 weeks. I know it says approximately, but still, that's like saying it's been approximately 1 year when it's only been 7 months. And yes, I like Little Miss Malachi too. She's interesting, she has a purpose, her name is a fun reference to the Yellow trailer. What's not to love?
A little jumpy today,
This is the only time Cinder is jumping in this volume. I love how Yang and Weiss are so aggressive towards Crow when he's just trying to be reasonable. And instead of shouting no before RWBY asks, or beating them all up with his magic powers that allow him to take on Hazel like he was a fly, meaning Ozpin should be able to beat the crap out of everyone here, including Crow and Maria, he doesn't. Why does Salem look at the camera? Who is Jin's illusion looking at? What? Oh hey, so according to this concept art, Cinder really wasn't that close to the crack, because she should be here considering the water. So what's up with this shot? Why is it so bad? Now, I'll start off by saying I like episode 3 more than any other RWBY critic I've seen, so yeah, I do like this episode, more or less. Isn't it wonderful that they don't actually show what he went through? Like, we see one guy at each of these, then they shoot magic bullshit at nothing, and that's it. You know, the relationship is so barely developed that I think this 23-minute long episode could have been better used to flesh it out. Like, anything would be better than just some bitch saying, oh, they fucked, by the way. Now, I'm not entirely sure if they're trying to make Salem sympathetic, but if they are, then they failed. Yes, she lost someone. She was locked up, blah blah blah. I've lost people too. I've fallen in love, and while the person I care about didn't die, she doesn't feel the same way about me. I had to watch one of my grandparents slowly spiral through dementia. But you know what I never thought, even when I was 9 years old? I never thought it wasn't fair because I knew this is just how the world works. I've basically always been about as cynical as I am now. Not important. What's important is that Salem is crying over the death of the one person she had, and instead of coming to terms with it, she's just sort of going wah wah wah. Now, the initial reaction, okay, fair enough, but then she goes way too far as this episode goes on. But I still feel like the God of Life fucked up in this scene. Instead of explaining anything to her or helping her cope, he's just like, deal with it, bitch. If this is supposed to be scary, then I hate to tell you, it looks more like an inflatable tube thing in a used car lot. See, body horror is scary the more realistic the person looks. Like, take any of the body horror from the Uzumaki manga. That shit's freaky because the art is so realistic and detailed. This looks fucking hilarious.
She told him of her loss, all while careful to make no mention of his elder.
Also, this should have been shown with her actual dialogue instead of Jin blatantly explaining it, thus allowing observant viewers to take note of that, and less observant ones to be like, oh yeah, when the God of Light brings it up. Good for both audiences, you might want to pander to. Despite that, I do like the God of Darkness's voice. It's much better than the God of Monotones. God bless this voice actor. Yeah, it's hard to have a dramatic scene when Ozma keeps dying and coming back over and over.
I don't feel so good.
But you know, I do like the dragons just because they look cool, but also because of the differing views on what dragons represent between the East and the West. Like, in the West, dragons are fearsome, destructive behemoths. They're little more than vicious animals, stronger than can be fathomed. While in the East, dragons are benevolent, kind creatures, with so much power and wisdom. It's a nice little yin and yang thing going on, and while it's about as deep as a puddle, it's at least something that I can appreciate and say, hey, I like that.
I have made you immortal. You must learn the importance of life and death.
What? So to teach her the value of life and death, you're gonna make her immortal? How? What? Why? What? The only way this works is if you expect her to befriend a bunch of people and watch them die. But, like, why would she do that if she knows she's immortal? Why? Why not just kill her and allow her spirit or whatever to be with Ozma or something? Also, Ruby here looks pretty sorry for her, but why? Yes, she's grieving and all, but grieving doesn't automatically make one clear of their actions. This would be so much more interesting if we actually get to see her do this, see how she thinks. It's hard to make someone sympathetic if we don't get into their head, and hard to make someone seem smart and threatening when we don't get to see how they do things. Also, it would have been a really cool shot if she had like a bunch of weapons impaled into her that kept changing as she shifted between kingdoms. This bitch we gave immortality to got 3 different kingdoms to turn against us by lying and manipulating them like she did to us. I know! I'll wipe out every living thing on the planet, 90% of which had nothing to do with this. It's almost like when we gave these humans the ability of choice that they could turn against us by choosing to. And yes, to punish one person and a small percentage of the population of the world, they annihilated everything! Yeah, it's a remnant of what it once was because you annihilated everything.
We will learn from this failure.
Ah yes, next time you make a world without free will, because that's the only way to avoid this issue and makes you a pretty crappy god. These Beowulfs are walking in place.
If the Fountain of Life granted her immortality, then surely the pools of Grimm would finally take it away.
Once again, if we could hear her saying or thinking this, it'd be pretty cool. In fact, if they showed her talking to herself, it could help convey that maybe isolation has caused her to go mad or something. Because I think that'd make it very understandable why she's a bad guy, if she's gone cuckoo bananas due to living on a barren planet alone. Instead, she's evil because she decides nothing but destruction because black pools.
If brought together, these 4 relics will summon my brother and I, and humanity will be judged. If your kind has learned to live in harmony with one another and set aside their differences, then we shall once again live among you. But if your kind is unchanged, if you demand our blessings while still fighting amongst yourselves, then man will be found irredeemable.
No. That makes no sense. If Ozma managed to get all the relics together and stash them under the schools, why weren't you summoned? Why? Okay. If we assume that the only ones he had were the one in Atlas, Haven, and Beacon, why didn't he just use all of his resources to search for the last one? A small percentage of the population were fighting. I know it's not unreasonable considering what these gods did to assume that that small percentage it would be enough for them to just end the planet. But that's so dumb. Like, Ozpin doesn't know that they did it for that. Then again, because he doesn't really react to this information when Jin tells in the next episode, maybe he did know. I don't know. This is one thing you should explain. Why aren't you explaining this? Also, you seem to be implying that infighting is a big issue, but we saw no infighting at all in the first world. It's show, don't tell, not tell and end the conversation. And what bullshit are you going on about? Humanity fucking united to take you out. It's like, you have to work together, but not against us, that's too far, okay? Can't go against the gods, bitch. And like, you can't say this is why Osmond didn't summon the gods. The whole world was in harmony. There was tension, but there were no wars. The infighting was between Faunus and humans, and the gods never fucking mentioned Faunus.
Please, tell me your name. Who are you?
Please, tell me your name. Who are you? This literally cannot wait until we're safely out of range of those black things that keep attacking us. It needs to be told now. Remember when World of Remnant said Faunus existed before mankind? No? Well, okay, Miles, I'm sure you know what you're doing. Maybe. Stop narrating! Oh my god! Seriously, it'd be much more touching and meaningful if instead of narration, we saw them approach each other. Without dialogue, the animation could show us confusion, disbelief, curiosity, surprise, love, happiness. It would only take maybe 30 seconds of good animation to do this, but instead we get 2 seconds of this blue bimbo narrating. It's not like she's a reliable narrator anyway. I mean, she said Salem seek nothing but pure destruction, but here she is, living alone in a house without destroying anything.
We have to spread our word and destroy those who will deny it.
How about instead of destroying those that deny you, instead you show them that you exist? Like, atheists would probably start believing in God if he showed up, did God things, and was like, I exist, boys. The difference here is that, well, you're physically two people. You exist within the world. You can just pop over like, hey-oh. Yeah, I kind of like this shot. I kind of do. Isn't it weird that Salem, who is now composed of pure destruction, can still create things like children? Or is Ozma's god sperm just that strong? I love that not only do the kids vanish in this shot, but Ozma never considered trying to save them. We know he can create force shields, so it seems like it'd make more sense for him to try and get them out safely. Also, aren't you so glad they didn't show us anything? That would have taken effort. Okay, like, it's one thing to not show 4 children getting slaughtered. I mean, personally, if you're going to start taking your show seriously, you probably should be willing to, given you don't have to deal with censors like a show like Avatar does. Heck, just showing the kids about to die, then cutting away, would be fine, like what you did with TikTok, whatever her face, it's on the clock, yada yada. Or have us see the full extent of the fight with the kids in the background trying to escape, only for Ozma to find them at the end dead. Something. It's just hard to take this seriously when all we get are a few flashing lights and still images, and then we're just told it was a really hard-fought battle. Like, imagine if in Dragon Ball, right? There's a big fight between Goku and Jiren. Oh man, this is gonna be cool. Instead, all we saw was Krillin and, like, Vegeta reacting to the fight as there were some flashes, and then at the end, we just hear Vera's like, wow, that was one hard battle. And the way she cuts off his last words are just hilarious. I think this would be a good point for him to say something really poignant, but it just feels like they didn't have anything and decided that cutting him off would be fine. Even something as simple as,
we finally have freedom.
We always did. Would work better than,
we finally have freedom.
Well, actually, okay, this shot bothers me quite a bit. What we have here is a short tracking shot of Ozma going through 3 incarnations of his life with narration over it. Now, I don't recall ever seeing this sort of scene done right, but here's my idea. Here's what I'd pitch for this scene. Get rid of the narration and make it longer. Show us Ozma walking as he goes through multiple different incarnations. As you do this, have the lives of those incarnations fade in and out as he goes along. Life as a farmer, show the family he was with, the farm, his death. Life as a knight, show the combat, the war, the friendships, the squads he had. As you do this in the background, all you need is the sounds of those lives, the people he are with, talking. But as it goes on, you have those sounds slowly drown out, have those images fade away, show through visuals that as his existence went on, slowly, everything stopped having meaning. Everything just bunched together, lost coherence, they lost value as reincarnation continuously began to drain him. Have Ozma himself go from sad about his loss to recovering, then happy, then slowly getting sadder and more lonely. With nothing but visuals and well-used sound that doesn't include any narration, you can tell so much. Now, my idea might not be the easiest to do, or even the best, but I think it's better than just narrating it. Also, instead of explaining how he began to value being with the souls, show it! Show that amongst this haze of useless noise in all his lives, everything gets cleared up when he's with the family of the person he's attached to. Show through animation that when he's with his new loved ones, everything regains meaning. Thus, the hardships shown prior gain a new meaning of their own. Rather than representing how life stopped having meaning, have it represent how his past lives don't matter anymore and he's just learned to live in the present. It is both a happy and sad thing, as on one hand he gets to enjoy the lives he makes, but on the other hand they truly don't have meaning in the end with hindsight, because he will just forget about them. You could show so much, you could have so much meaning in this, but instead they show nothing and narrate everything. Why do you have two of the same model here? Have Austin represented by different incarnations just sort of melded into one, a haze of different identities as described in the last volume. But nope! You see right here, this ending bit, no narration. It's so much better than the rest. Instead of explaining it, they just show his reaction. You get to understand what he's feeling instead of just have someone read it out. Imagine if it was like this. I told him he couldn't destroy Salem, and I left him broken, unable to do anything as the futility of his mission dawned upon him. See how that ruins it? I know the internet has stupid people, but Rooster doesn't know how many are in their audience. They should treat them with enough respect to assume they can understand what you're showing. And anyone who doesn't get it will just look it up anyway. This is like reading a plot synopsis instead of watching what that synopsis is of. You get no emotional attachment, there's no meaning, there's no value. It's nothing but words explaining events without any connections made at all. So that's going to be it for this video. Yeah, I hate to split it into parts, but this is already longer than I intended the full video to be. Like, what is it, 20 minutes now? I'm not sure. I guess I'll leave you off with this. Just because I criticize this work doesn't mean I don't like it. Now, yeah, I'm not a fan of Volume 6, I consider it the second best volume of the series, but that doesn't really matter for this series of videos. If it was the second best volume in my opinion, I'd make this anyway, and I intend to continue this onwards from Volume 6 as volumes come out, and I'm not going backwards because that would mean I have to do Volume 5. I don't think I have the time in my life to get through Episode 11 on its own, even though I already did that in another video.